What's up? We're back with another Feature Friday.
Man, I love your energy. You got me right out the rip. Welcome back to another episode. Just before we get into the episode, I want to mention that this season 2, is brought to you by the Supporting Black Canadian Communities Initiative.
Shout out to BBI.
Yeah.
Black Business Initiative. We appreciate you.
And to bring you to today's episode, we have 2 wonderful guests. We have Shekara Grant and Curtis Whiley.
Boom. And maybe we'll just dive right in.
Yeah.
One at a time. Maybe just tell us about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my name is Shekara Grant. Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm from Cherry Brook. That's where I grew up. But I also have ancestral connections to Weymouth Falls. Currently do my master's in sociology, which I'm really excited about. And yeah, maybe I'm sure we'll get into it. So I'll leave it there for now.
Shout out CBC. Cherry Brook Connection.
Yes. And I'm Curtis Whiley, and I'm from Upper Hammonds Plains. I guess by day, I work for the province on the Land Titles Initiative, and been mobilizing around the Community Land Trust in Upper Hammonds Plains for the last few years. And we've been making some big moves, so I'm excited to tell you more about it.
Yeah, we can't wait to dive in on that. Big news.
Yeah.
For sure. So a lot of African Nova Scotian communities represented in the room right now. So I do want to start, I guess, by you mentioning your upbringing, maybe just starting there, your upbringing, why community means so much to you. And yeah.
Yeah. So I said I was from Cherry Brook, which I am, but I actually grew up in downtown Dartmouth.
Okay.
So my grandparents are from Cherry Brook. So that's where I spent all my time. That's where I had all my birthday parties. But I went to I was in French immersion, so I didn't go to school with folks in my community. So I did the Dartmouth High track. That's where I...
Dark side. Welcome to Dark side. I should have brought you a dark side, though.
Right. Well, I didn't tell you yet. That's why. I had to make sure.
Learning.
But yeah, so I think growing up for me, I grew up around a lot of white people. That was kind of my experience. And, we'd always have family reunions and all these gatherings and family vacations, which is where I really got to be in community.
Yeah.
But I don't think I actually understood it until I went to university. Because Dartmouth High still has, some color in the hallways. Sure. Yeah. But university, it really didn't. It really didn't. And so for me, that's when I started thinking about why is this? Why am I in this institution across the bridge from where I'm from? And there's no one here that really looks like me.
Yeah.
And from there, I just started reading. That was my key. Getting really invested. And then, I think a lot of us, when 2020 came, it was good because it gave us the opportunity to kind of learn a bit about ourselves, I think, in that process. But it also made me understand some of this rage I've been feeling and being able to express it differently.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the catalyst for me. It was 2020. From there on, it's been, a lot of learning about African Nova Scotian culture and how I can play a part in my communities.
Love it. What about you, Curtis?
Yeah. So I grew up a few kilometers from Upper Hammonds Plains. So I grew up in Highland Park. And my family's homestead is in Upper Hammonds Plains. And so I'd spend a lot of time there. And I went to elementary school, all through the school with everyone from the community. So I built really close connections with, people that I'm still friends with today. It's when you're going through life and all these different kind of connections come and go, but it's always these community, the ones that are from the community that I feel we end up maintaining. So I, grew up with a bunch of folks from my community, and then I went to university, and then I was kind of there solo because not a lot of people from the community, no one from the community joined me at that time. So that was tough. That felt like the first time that I was in an institution where I didn't have a lot of people that I grew up with to be with me. So that was a bit of a challenge, but I got through that, and then I started working for the province. And that was kind of, brings us to today.
Yeah, I think that's a similar experience for all of us, racialized folks, in terms of going to university, feeling like you're out of place, feeling is this where I'm supposed to be? Yeah, exactly. There's no one else like me. There's no people from my community. I mean, I went through that. Yeah. And maybe you could dive into a little bit of how you maybe triumphed that, or
so I think that, the nice thing about university is that you have some more autonomy versus high school of what you study. So I really started taking classes on culture. And when I started, I thought I was going to do psych. I knew I wasn't, really into sciences, but I think that's the only social science that you're exposed to in high school. So I thought I was going to do that. I ended up taking a writing course in sociology in first year. And then I realized that was really my interest. But for me, that like studying sociology, which is basically just like understanding culture and how people work in groups, that was the key for me. So I started doing a lot of writing and presentations, I guess, in my undergrad on Black communities. I was doing a lot of, I chose to do a lot of research on the Black Lives Matter movement, like before 2020. So, you know, Mike Brown and that, and a lot of that stuff. So that's kind of how I got into that piece of it. But, you know, I remember when I ended up doing my honors, I made a point in my presentation to say, like, I want to acknowledge that I'm the only one that looks like me in this cohort. And like, I hope that my presence here can, you know, serve to have more people here. But yeah, I think for me, that was the first time I understood, like, this is where the gap starts. I mean, actually, it starts long before that. But yeah, not seeing yourself reflected in university is a big challenge. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you end up finding your folks? Like, this probably for both of you guys, did you end up finding ANS or Black folks in university? And what university did you guys go to?
Mm-hmm.
I did not.
No, me neither.
I went to SMU. And I had a lot of great friends. Like, you know, don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't the, you know, the folks that I was used to, you know, socializing with or felt the most comfortable with, I should say. Yeah. And, you know, SMU has a diverse, you know, Black community, but it was like that was my first introduction to that, you know, different Black people with different backgrounds and being in one space, and what the complexity that comes along with that. But yeah, so no, there wasn't any other ANS folks that I can
attest to that because Nico Jones was probably the only other African Nova Scotian that I knew at Dow with me.
Right.
He was like, when you look around, it's like, where's your people at, right?
Right, right.
But then you do connect with other Black folks, like you said, and, you know, learn about their background and stuff like that.
Exactly. And it wasn't until, like, I mean, I was always still, because I didn't live at SMU, like, I still lived at home and still, you know, went up, because we call up Hammonds Plains.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I'm going to call my...
Don't fight.
I said up Hammonds Plains, and then I'm like, up North Preston.
Yeah.
I was like, going to put
me and Nico used to argue in class, like, up home, and I say the real up home.
Right. So I'm just continue fighting about that.
So we're good.
Oh, y'all like, we're down.
To wherever you're from, it's the real up home anyways.
Right. Yeah. So I was still socializing and spending all of the other, you know, hours there. So yeah, but yeah, went to SMU, studied small business, like entrepreneurship and small business. And again, that was like a smaller, even tighter kind of group, like as opposed to like accounting or the other, you know, practices that had a lot more people in them. And it was just a smaller group of, so then it's just you know?
For sure.
Yeah.
Because even for me, like, I was the only Black person in all my classes. Like, out of 30 kids or 30 youth is one, and I was the one. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I did have friends. Like, I remember just seeing Leslie.
And we did have friends, God. We had friends.
I had Black friends. No, but it was... So just seeing Leslie as someone, like, her and I have been friends. Like, we were actually born a day apart. So we were friends, like, all through elementary, junior high school. So thankfully I had her.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing about university is, like, I didn't really have time for that. Like, I was not just going to university. I had 2 jobs at the time because I needed to pay for myself to go to university.
Same.
So I would start my day by going to work. I worked at Victoria's Secret, and I did a lot of things there, but I would support with inventory. So I'd work like 6 to 10 a.m. before, and then I would go to class. And then after that, I'd work at Boston Pizza. So
wow,
on the grind.
Yeah.
You had to do it, right? So it's like, I didn't even have time to, like, really be out there. So I don't know if I really picked up that many friends in university, maybe a few, but I had to work. I had to pay for my own school.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because the same thing was true for me. Like, I worked at StatsCan doing phone interviews, and I felt so good because I had this like government job, but it wasn't even like technically a government job, but it was a good job for university, like going to school, because it was hours, you know, on the weekends and in the evenings. And I can remember being so upset with my sister, because I have a twin sister, and she was like away in studying, and she was like, you know, doing her thing, like, whatever. Exactly. And I'm like, I'm out here having to work everything. But that's a really important piece, right? Like, I feel like, you know, because of the circumstances that we find ourselves in, we have to do that, right? And we don't always get the luxury of having that experience like Akila, to be able to just, you know, not have to worry about working. and to have that kind of different experience. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's experience is different in university, I find. I remember you were saying a little while ago about maintaining your relationships in community.
Yeah.
And then now you're maintaining other things in community. Maybe could we dive into that?
Of course, yeah. Absolutely. So I started, I started working for the province out of university in housing. And so I was delivering home repair assistance. And I was assigned to basically the Eastern Shore area, but it started from like beyond Dartmouth. So basically Preston out the Eastern Shore. And so that's when I started to, work with folks in Preston. I had never done that up until that point.
You've never been up home?
No, I had never been up home. So yeah, and I started to build these relationships with community members, right? And it was a great job because I got to actually help people. I got to actually spend money and invest in their homes and help them maintain their homes. So it was that was great. But one of the criteria was that you had to own your own home, right? And so this is when I started to understand this title precarity in Black communities, specifically in the Prestons, right? So folks would be applying for a grant and you'd have to look to make sure that they owned the home. And a lot of time, in some situations, it would be in an estate of a deceased parent or grandparent, or it would be in some other precarious title position. So that's when I saw firsthand that, this title problem is creating barriers to Black people in particular. And it's, preventing them from being able to access government services and programs.
So simple terms is the house wasn't in their name.
The house wasn't in their name.
But they own it technically, kinda, but they don't.
Not legally.
Okay.
Right? So like when you don't have clear title, you can't get a mortgage, right? You can't convey, like you couldn't transfer to somebody else. And there's just a lot of other issues. You can't get house insurance, all of these types of things that, that give you security.
Yeah.
Give Black people security.
You're not eligible for the grants and the funding that's available to
that too. Right, exactly. And in a lot of circumstances, folks were still paying taxes, right? Because if you have a home in an estate, for example, property taxes are still accruing under that estate's name. And if you don't pay the taxes, it can go up for tax sale, right? Even though you don't have title. So one of the ways of just making sure that it doesn't get lost in a tax sale is to continue paying the taxes, but you don't even get to benefit from the services necessarily.
So then that tax sale would create a clear title for the person that bought it.
Correct.
Tax sale.
Because tax sales create clarity to title.
And
right?
then there's no like retroactiveness. Like say, like I lost my house because I didn't know nothing about taxes, and now someone else up home owns it, and like I'm like, bro, you ain't even in my family, but you own my house.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And that mechanism was used for a long time to dispossess Black people, right? Because the way that they were advertised, these tax sales, was unclear, right? And by unclear, I mean likely weren't even posted for people to see, right? And so there's evidence of a lot of that. So that's why you have, these, kind of parcels of land belonging to people that are completely outside the community with no connection to it because they had purchased them at a tax sale.
Did that just happen in the Prestons area, or did that happen like on Creighton area, like where like there's wealthier homes? Homes that are like high value? I'm not certain about like on the peninsula or in more dense areas, but I know it's true for other African Nova Scotian communities, most definitely.
Well, that's maybe my next question on that is maybe speaking to your experience as well, because yours is Weymouth Falls Community Land Titles Initiative, right? So there's definitely some similarities with why communities in the situation that they are and how they were disproportionately affected.
And it was,
we should explain that.
I was going to say,
break it down for the audience.
How did we get here?
Yeah, right. Well, I think the thing that's interesting is that we connected over this issue, like this land. That's how we first started talking about this. Yeah. But there is a difference between like community land trust and land titles initiative. So you probably would be best positioned to explain.
Yeah,
sure. So yes, the land titles initiative, seeks to give folks titles based on use and occupation. But one thing that through all of that I learned was that there's, or that I observed was that there are big pieces of property or other pieces of property in our communities that not one person and not one family would be successful in gaining possession to, right? So I thought, in the future, it would be great if our communities had a unified mechanism, right, to assert a communal interest in property, real property in our communities, right? I thought that would be a much later thing, but that's where the community land trust we're trying to prove can be that, right?
Okay.
So
what is that specifically?
Right. So I'll let you explain what a community is. I'll let you have that part, but that's kind of the difference. So the Land Titles Initiative just seeks to support individuals, typically with use and occupation, right? So we're talking about a house or some other, use, physical use on the parcel. But, we have big pieces of property in our community that are just woods, right? And so what can we do as a community to start to advocate for reclamation of those lands?
So like community land trusts and initiatives, more individual based with initiatives, and like community based. I mean, both are community based, but more like collective based with the land trust as the
exactly.
Okay.
And the Land Titles Initiative would not be able to support a land trust, really, because they wouldn't have this. They wouldn't be able to prove enough of evidence to make a claim. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot.
I know. And it is complex.
Yeah.
And honestly, so like I said, we connected through the land title issue because my family experienced it. So it was a particular situation, but just to kind of like put it on the ground, what we're talking about. So like I said, I've never lived in Weymouth Falls. My grandmother's from Weymouth Falls, and I used to go to all the reunions, spend summers there. So that's my connection. And so when I learned about the Land Titles Initiative, which is a government initiative, I started talking to my family about this. And I was like, did you guys know that people like live on property they don't own? Like, I've never heard of that. I didn't know that was an issue. And then my grandmother said, well, yeah, we had that issue. And so she explained that essentially what had happened is her parents left her and her siblings title to the property. I'm sure it wasn't like a will that was created by a law firm. Like I'm sure it was oral history is a lot. Like that's how land get passed in a lot, but sometimes that can be challenged more easily. But anyway, so my great grandparents had left their property to my grandmother and her siblings. And so after both of my great grandparents passed, one of my great-grandfather's siblings challenged the deed and basically said they didn't have the right to actually will this property because it should have belonged equally to all of us because we're all the children of my great-great-grandparents, and so we should have equal access. So this whole process happened without my grandparents knowing, like my grandmother and her siblings knowing. But eventually the deed was overturned. And I think, when I say this happened without them knowing, we don't know how or why, but some considerations that we need to remember is that, especially in rural communities, like they didn't have house numbers, they didn't have mailboxes. Like the way to actually get information out is very different. And no one was living there at that time. So even if, let's say, they tried to drop off mail, like who knows if anyone would have got it. So there's a lot of reasons why that never got to them. But so the title challenge was successful. And so that's how my grandparents lost access to their property. And so hearing that story, I was like, oh, I need to, now I'm interested. So I started learning more about the Land Titles Initiative. That's how, I connected with Curtis, and, Curtis is a wealth of information. So I was able to learn a lot about it. But in that process, I started talking to other community members and realized that this is not unique by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that land is such a deeply personal thing for our communities that we don't talk about it. But it's a very overwhelming phenomenon, I think, impacting all of our communities in ways that we probably don't even realize.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so that's what led me to. So then I went to the Nunavut, and I was living in the Arctic during COVID. Yeah.
You up there getting isolation pay?
Listen, I was like, if we're going to be isolated, I might as well be isolated up there. Isolated. And while I was up there, I was like, what can I be doing in my own community back home? And that's when I started to consider a community land trust for Upper Hammonds Plains. And I actually founded it when I was there.
Oh, wow.
And started to, basically start this conversation in community, despite me not being actually present, about this model, right?
Was there something that you seen out there that like sparked it, or?
Not really. We had first started, we were called like the Strategic Initiatives Committee because we were talking initially about traffic. So Upper Hammonds Plains is getting developed. This was in 2021 at a rapid pace, right? A lot of development happening. People really not understanding what they could do about it and what could, how we could try to combat some of the traffic issues, because it was around children and safety on the street is how things kind of started. And I was saying, there's a lot of where's all this traffic coming from? Because I wasn't up here. I wasn't up there then. And then I learned, I started to discover what was happening. Because I still understood how to check the type, I still understood how to check, I guess, look at the parcels and what was happening with them from the skills I learned on the Land Titles Initiative. So that's how we kind of first started down this road of a community land trust. And me and another person, her name is Ariel Goff. I need to shout her out because she was right with me along the way in the very beginning in those first years, trying to get this thing off the ground. And it took years of kind of just talking to people about what a community land trust is, how it could be used as a mechanism. And really, I feel like a lot of people didn't understand, right? But I felt like I did just because of what I saw happening in our communities. Yeah. I'm like, we could be doing this and it could be transformational. So I was talking about it for a long time and basically trying to get people to get used to this idea. Because, collective stewardship of property in Black communities is unheard of, right? Because if you really think about, all of our history is tied to slavery, right? Where we didn't even have possession over our own bodies. We didn't get to own our own bodies, right? And then, then we get this promise to come to Canada and you'll own this piece of property. Come to Canada and we'll give you this piece of property. People come, they don't get those. They don't get the titles, right? And so folks in our community are really holding on to what we call fee simple title, but they want to have legit, legal ownership in their own name. And it means more than just a piece of paper, right? It represents that stability, that autonomy, that thing, that ownership that we've been striving for, right? For hundreds of years. And so trying to talk to people about a collective model is unheard of, right? They're just like, well, how do I, make it make sense? And so it's taken years of conversation and community to get to this place. And granted, we're still not all the way there. Of course not. But, people are understanding what it would be like for us to, own our community collectively and be able to create opportunities for ourselves, right? To help us lift up all community members in various ways. So that's what we're seeking to do through the Community Land Trust.
So it's the Land Titles Initiative, and then the Land Trust, and
community. They're not connected.
Okay. So it's two different things. And so the Land Titles works to get clear title for participants or folks that want it,
right?
And then the trust is the community coming together to own the community together?
That's right. So the Land Titles Initiative provides legal services and surveying services to folks in designated communities, right? Upper Hammonds Plains is not one of those designated communities, right? So you can only access the
Prestons, the Weymouth, no?
No. So it's North Preston, East Preston, Cherry Brook, Lake Loon, and Lincolnville and Sunnyvale in Guysborough County. Okay. So it's just those 5.
And is that because the manpower that
legislated?
Okay.
So when the act was created, there was 13 communities. But really only 5 of them are African Nova Scotian communities.
And those are of course white folks communities.
Too. Exactly. Because there was there was an interest convergence when the Land Titles Clarification Act was established. Right there, it was helping. They put it in place based on this kind of human rights commission that was struck, came up with these recommendations based on title precarity in Black communities, but then, they could also add on other communities that they were looking at. And of course, those ones don't have title issues anymore, right? They were able to use the act and benefit from it, but the ones that still need it are the 5.
Okay. Is that only happening in Nova Scotia, like Eastern Canada, or is it happening?
No, it's only the Land Titles Clarification Act is only
Nova Scotia.
Yeah, Nova Scotia, and it's unique to Nova Scotia because Black people came here first, right? The existence of Black people in Canada began here in Nova Scotia. In
who
the communities like ours.
that thing?
The original act?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't remember the premier's name at the time, but
Shout out to him.
Yeah, he established it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. The conversation, and this is like just another thing, because first off, thank you for breaking this down and explaining it to us, because I'm learning a lot, and I feel like the audience definitely will learn a lot from it as well, because I hear the words put out and I do some research on it, but like this is like clarifying some of the confusion that some people may have, so great job on that. But I guess my
before maybe
the
folks that maybe like a call to action for those folks, would you guys be able to, like, maybe people from our communities or the communities that you mentioned, what if, let's say they do have not clear title,
how do you get involved?
How do they get involved? What could you say to them, or how would you pitch it to them?
Yeah. So with the Land Titles Initiative, absolutely. If you live in one of the designated communities and you know you own a piece of property, or you want to check to make sure that there's clear title, you would contact the Land Titles Initiative, right?
Easy process. I did it. I didn't get the land, but I did the process. And
exactly.
I don't know. We might still try to get the land. We got to see what Grandma says.
There's always a chance, right?
Yeah.
And
it was an easy process. It was actually fun. I enjoyed it. Connecting with the lawyers, connecting with the Black folks at the organization. It was actually not as stressful or as you would think it would be. Yeah. And I mean, even though I lost, it wasn't an L because I learned a lot through the process.
Yeah. And yes, exactly. So we encourage anybody to reach out to us who lives in the designated areas. And so that's how we can support people through the Land Titles Initiative, which is the provincial thing. And so the Community Land Trust is a volunteer organization that we do outside. And so that's why in the beginning we were talking about community.
Yeah.
It's like now I only consider that, I think, to be community work. So when you were like, oh, how long have you been working in community? I was like, a couple of years. Because I only consider the land trust work. Yeah. It's interesting because I didn't think about it till you said that.
Yeah.
I only really consider that to be community work. Mind you, I've been doing community work forever, or for my career, most of my career. So it's interesting to think about that, contemplate that. Yeah.
So I guess my question was like, what's it like navigating conversations with community members about the Community Land Trust? And maybe even there's a certain word I don't like using with I'm going to use a different one, but maybe like different parties and partnerships. Like, what's it like navigating those conversations about this matter? Are people receptive? Do they kind of push back? Like, what's that situation like?
I think it's a challenging conversation because, like I said, land is deeply personal. Yeah. And I think that a lot of folks don't understand what that actually means to be like rooted in a community for like 8 to 10 generations. And similar, like the land that my grandfather or my grandparents live on, like that's land that my ancestors were the first to like develop that piece of property. And so that means something to a lot of us. And I think the conversation about community ownership is challenging because I think that the Black community has been misled by, rent to own schemes and other things that have been introduced to our communities to help us. And then you never end up with ownership or you never end up with benefits. So I think it's challenging. And my process has really been to start at a common ground, like use plain language and figure out like what are the concerns in community. And then it turned out for Weymouth, like a lot of the concerns could be answered with the land trust. So I found that the easier process was to actually connect what people were saying to like how the land trust could play a role. So for example, when I started this, because I work in nonprofit housing, I was like, we are going to develop housing. So I'm going to register this land trust. The community's going to love it. And then we're going to develop housing. And then once we started talking, we realized that the actual gap was that they lack community spaces. So a big phenomenon in rural communities is that a lot of their community spaces have been condemned. Like they've just been there for a long time. No one's been using it. No one has the money to maintain them. And so they just kind of fall in disarray. And so we quickly realized that what the community actually needs is to like rehabilitate these existing properties, restore them. So once we started talking about that, I think that's when people were like, oh, this could Like, this doesn't have to be you're taking my land and putting it into a land trust, because that's not the goal. Like, if you are an individual homeowner and you have clear title to your property, great. Very happy for you. But it's those parcels that are at risk that we really want to focus on. So when you look at, community property, what would happen is that either it would go to someone from outside of the community, or someone from the community would try to save it. They would buy it themselves, and that's creating significant financial hardship. Like, there's so many people in our Black communities who buy and hold land. This is what I've come to find, because they want to see something good happen. But what ends up happening is that they're sitting on property, they're paying property taxes. It's costing them a lot, right?
Depleting their wealth, just trying to
to hold, like, just to hold land and hope that something will happen with the community. So the really nice thing about the land trust is that it becomes this nonprofit that doesn't put individual burden on property stewardship. Like, you can hold it collectively. And that's a big thing, right? People think it's like, oh, your land has to come into the land trust. It's like, no, happy for you. And how can we support you and actually make sure you stay in your home? But in addition to that, what can we do to make sure that this community continues to thrive?
So where does the funding come from to go into the trust and the land that goes into the trust? Because you said, like, if someone has clear title, they might not put it in the trust. Can you just put it in the trust and be like, hey, I want this in the trust? Or how does that work? What does it look like for a successful land trust?
Yeah, I think that you could.
I love the smirks between you both. Y'all speaking with your eyes. It's so cool.
Well, because it's just like, that could be scary, because I don't want people to think. Because I don't want people to think that's the goal. Like, I think in some ways, so what I've had people say to me is, they don't have kids, they're aging, and so they're grateful that there's this mechanism that can potentially hold the land, because they don't really have anyone to offer it. But on the reverse, I've also heard families who have been deeded property. They don't live here. They have no interest in that property. And now they have to pay a tax bill for land that they're never going to live on. So I think there are situations where people might decide that they want it to be in the land trust, but I don't want people to think that that's the goal.
I think this is awesome, though, because it makes me think, like, let's say a lot of, like, my grandmother passed away. We got no other people in the family. And then I don't want the burden of owning the land, but I want the land to be like North Preston's land. Because what I'm getting from you guys, it makes it sound, or it is North Preston's land if it's in the North Preston Land Trust.
Yeah.
Like, it belongs to the community, for the community, and I don't know who makes the decisions. Maybe we could dive into that.
Right.
And what's what you know what I mean? Because if you get, say, I don't know if it's a board or how they run it, but then someone that runs it into the ground, or how do you guys pick who's going to do the right stuff and for the long term?
Yeah, great questions. On the point about land, and so we're trying to test 4 different things in Upper Hammonds Plains. Like, one is acquisition, like to purchase property, which we did, which we'll explain. One is to trace titles and assert interests. So, our community is surrounded by parcels of land that are provincially held, and so we're seeking to do just what I kind of was referring to before by saying, the community should be able to steward this property, and we have an organization that has the support of the community. Can we start to have this dialogue and conversation? So that we'll talk about. One is working with faith-based organizations like churches, and so we are also doing that. We know that churches in our communities often do hold property, right? But it may not be their goal to, bring it to a higher and better use, right? So they can partner through joint ventures with the community land trust in the community to leverage that property, or potentially to purchase a property, or, some other thing to bring, just so that, that the community land trust can be that engine that kind of drives some of that work forward, right? And then the last one is purchasing property from individuals, because we want to be able to get there. Of course, we need to be generating more revenue to be able to do that, because there's the current finance, social finance grant kind of landscape doesn't, is not basically, that's not an eligible activity.
So would a trust generate funds from putting the funds in a thing, or having properties and renting them out to the people in the community? Like,
yeah. So, one of our models, or one of the there's a couple of things that we're testing, right? But one is that, we're going to build housing, and the revenue from that will come back to the land trust to pay for, to basically so that people can work inside the land trust. But it will also make it so that we can will be a viable business, right? Yeah. So the community land trust is a nonprofit, but we are setting up a social enterprise, right? One that instead of personal, people profiting, the community is creating wealth, and that wealth will be used to purchase other properties or what have you. We're also looking at building a solar farm in our community, so that will be lease revenue from that parcel of land.
Is the government assisting with any of this?
Yeah. It's complicated, but I don't know if we're going to jump into the projects, but we might. Yeah,
I know like with some stuff is like, okay, let's say the government is helping us with this trust, and then they switch governments to a new government. They're like, oh, we ain't helping you no more. So then basically what you had built up may get depleted or something like that.
Right. And so that's why we need to have these organizations run as businesses, right? We need revenue generating nonprofits. Not ones that are struggling, going grant to grant to grant, right? We need to be selling services or creating value.
And that could be what you guys were saying earlier. It made me think of like gas stations, businesses in the community that like not just the community comes to, but other folks driving through. Like when you were saying traffic, put that traffic to use for like, stop by our McDonald's or something.
Yeah,
precisely.
That is something. But I think, the overall concept of a land trust is that you're separating the land from whatever's built on the land in some ways. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can run it, but you think about the fact that every time that a home is purchased, you not only buy the home, but you buy the land over and over and over again. So then the price of it continues to rise, even though there's no changes in the actual property. So like the idea is that the land stays with the land trust, and then that makes, the improvement or the development more affordable in perpetuity. Because let's say, you live there and then you decide you no longer want to live there. We're not selling the proprietorship to that property. Like someone else can move into the improvement. So it's a little bit complex. And honestly, the reason why I'm very interested in CLTs is because it's like a deeply decolonial process. If you think about it that way, because I personally don't necessarily believe in property ownership. I think it's one of the strangest measurements of play. Like if you look at a deed, it's like, this many centimeters from this thing and, this far from that thing. And it's just like the fact that an individual can own a piece of the earth, like something about that, it just doesn't sit with me very well. But I think the benefit of a CLT, in my view, is that you kind of take that piece of it out of the equation. So once the land is held, it's held forever. And you can worry about the improvements and communal use of property and all of those pieces. It allows you to kind of move beyond that.
I think if you have a successful model in terms of bringing in revenue, it's a thing that happens forever, not just like temporary. While let's say I'm here for now, but then when I die, my kids ain't got no money to maintain the property. Property goes for the tax sale. It's gone. Our family doesn't own it anymore. It's like a rental. It's gone.
Yeah, and you can do, so the thing, there's a lot of flexibility with the CLT, right? So the point of the community land trust is that you hold the land, but like what you do with the land and the services that you provide is not prescriptive. So you can do whatever you want. So that's why it's like, you can develop housing and you can have businesses and you can have a gas station and you can have a McDonald's if you want to, right? And you can be...
We want a McDonald's up home.
Right.
At both up homes.
Right. Exactly.
But you could franchise. If you own a piece of property and McDonald's is looking for a spot, like you could franchise that out.
And you can lease them the land. Like, so that's, so some CLTs, right?
And then that's revenue, that's money coming in. Even, and you don't have to take care of this.
Yeah. Exactly. So some folks might say, we don't want to develop. Right? We don't want to be a developer. We don't want to go through construction. It's a lot, right? But here's a piece of land and we want a nursing home, right? So you can go and get a nursing home to lease that property. You have, autonomy over what goes there and lease revenue potentially, right? For years that goes back to the community that can be reinvested into other things, So, so those are kind of, the big pieces, We don't have this thing figured out. I don't want to speak for you.
No.
I don't have this thing figured out.
Yeah.
And you mentioned governance, and it's a part of a really important part of it. And, to this point, it's just been 4 people on the board working as volunteers, right? So we're moving into a new phase where there'll be more community members on the board. And that's scary in a sense, because it's like you're starting to, we would just, you know what I mean? You're just bringing more people into the fold, more opinions, and it's exciting, but it's also, because you talked about, you know, we've all seen and observed and heard what happens to some of our, you know, some organizations, nonprofits in particular. So, you know, we're conscious about that, but you know, building into the bylaws, and we had this complex discussion around membership. So the thing about our communities is that they're very unique, and a lot of these things, like a member, even just saying we have a member-based nonprofit, there's much more layers of complexity for us, because what's a member, right? So we had to sit with our community. So we'll talk about some of the projects. So CMHC funded the Upper Hamilton Plains Community Land Trust to do a solutions lab, which was the first one in Atlantic Canada. It's their $200,000, or they're up to that amount, to like study a big question. And so our question was around governance, membership, and around our relationship with the Mi'kmaq, and like how to start, you know, how do we reconcile our interests, both our collective interests around land stewardship. And through that membership part, we developed a framework, right? But we had to have conversations over multiple days talking about, like, you know, basically who can be a member, right? You got to be, are we blood testing people? Like, how deep are we going? You know what I mean? Like, and we had to go there. Like, can adopted children, foster children, you know, white mothers with African Nova Scotian children, like we had to go there with the race and people being married into the community, and you know, that woman doesn't even know that's not her father, and she's really from the next, like, I'm talking, you know, because our communities don't like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And when it comes down to like somebody potentially getting a lot or getting, you know, priority access to a unit, these things start to really matter. So we had to go there and have those brave conversations. So we had we came up with a framework, and, you know, other communities will be able to use that now. Okay. So that's kind of like what's great about, it's frustrating to have to develop everything from the ground up, right? But it's also great because, you know, those that are mobilizing next or considering these things have a place to start.
Yeah, you guys are setting precedents and then paving the way for the future of the community. It's like, to me, this is like blowing my mind, but it's inspiring me. And it's like, man, if all the communities did something like this, it's like the communities would be so strong. And it just makes me think back to even when you're talking about the churches, the United Baptist churches, these are all the different Black community churches. But then if each individual Black community got empowered to the trust, then they could maybe, all the Black communities got their own trust, but then they maybe have one trust where if one community is getting messed up, then they could help uplift their community and brings the community back together. Correct. And we're all fighting for one thing versus everybody being displaced and not getting along or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, there's a lot that can be done with the CLT, and, you know, working collectively is really important. So, you know, we were mentioning before that we went on, we were delegates for a Canadian tour that went to the US to visit some models. And even in that process, being able to be with other Canadian Black-led CLTs and learn from each other, that was a really important thing, I think, for the process. But even what Curtis and I were talking about recently is just the fact that, like, what's so beautiful about the CLT model is because it has so much flexibility, like, different communities can use it differently and still be CLTs, right? And so, like, you know, so we're also not developed yet, like working on it. Making a lot
Weymouth one?
Yeah, Weymouth Falls. Yeah. So, you know, communities interested. And again, because we're focusing on community spaces, and even if we did develop, it wouldn't be like significant. It'd probably be like 6 units or something. Our questions, I don't find, are as complex as they would be in the city, because they need to be. Like, there's so much development. And so our membership, like the way that we did it, we had community conversations around the bylaws and again, what is a member, who can be a member? And the big piece was around, like, how do we maintain the African Nova Scotian presence, which I'm sure was the main question that you had as well. And so for us, we were able to realize that there was a connection in the community that everyone passed through, and it was the segregated school in our community. I think that the big thing is that people rarely move to rural. Like, if anything, they're moving to urban. And so everyone that participated in a community engagement and everyone that we talked to had an experience with that segregated school. Either they went there themselves, they married someone that went there, they descend from someone that went there. But there's going to be rare cases, of course, right? Someone moved and then they came back. So, we're not opposed to that. But we were able to kind of use that relationship to the school to set our membership. So, like, the way that we define, we haven't named it yet, but I'll say Class A for now. But we're not going to do the classes because that's a problem too, right?
Class A.
It's hard though.
But you're right.
Because it's like Class A. Then they're like, well, I don't want to be a Class B. I want to be a Class A. So we're figuring out the names of all of this stuff. But, the Class A membership is, you are a descendant of the community, it's like you attended or are the child of someone who attended the Sam Lakeford School. And so that has been really nice to find those commonalities. But then we have other categories as well, because for us, we wanted to make sure that anyone could be a member because, the way that Weymouth is as a village, there's an African Nova Scotian community, and then there's a Mi'kmaq community, and then there's an Acadian community, and there's a British Loyalist community. And they all actually lived and worked together, though they lived individual. So there was a real desire for everyone to be able to be a part of it, but to ensure that the decision-making power, like the overwhelming decision-making power, rested with, descendants of the community. So
I like that.
Yeah.
And ours is very similar. Although we haven't launched, our membership is launching very soon. So look up.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
It's like, what up home are you from?
Yeah.
It's like
well, anyone who's African Nova Scotian can be a member of the Land Trust. But again, the Class A members are the only ones that can run for board positions.
Oh, interesting.
Right. Awesome. Is that like a thing, like with the school thing for you guys? Or how's that?
Right. Ours is basically, if you're a descendant.
The blood testing.
Like, we had to contemplate that.
It's hard, yeah.
Basically, you have to be a descendant from one of the founding families, right? So we're going to have a large membership. We will have a large membership.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to be able to include so many other folks that have never lived in Upper Hammonds Plains and that are all throughout the U.S. but are descended from folks, and we wanted them to. So basically, that's what it is. And the community co-designed it, right? So I feel confident. I'm glad that we did that process because we could have been moving in the direction we're moving now without having that understanding from community.
I think
which
that's
would have
cool.
been more nerve-wracking.
I think it gives like the folks from the community. Like, because like I could say, oh, I'm from the community, but now if I'm participating in the trust and I'm a member, it's like I'm from the community, but I'm really from the community because we're really doing stuff for community.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's dope. Have you guys experienced any successful models when you guys traveled like across to North America?
Oh yeah.
You guys want to dive into some of that, like successful trusts that are taking place? Is there like one example that you guys could maybe mention or talk about?
You go.
Yeah, well, we talk about Rondev a lot.
What is it?
She's like in Minnesota. There's this corridor. Rondo has a similar story to Africville or Hogan's Alley, right? The community was destroyed to build a highway through that area. And they are like basically purchasing all of these plots or parcels along this one street. And it's throughout. That's where their kind of business area is, but they also buy homes like throughout their, I guess, county. And they're like the model in action. Like they help people buy their own homes that otherwise would never be able to own their own home.
Would it be folks descended from that area?
Yes.
Or okay.
So they have to be like descended from a family that was displaced by the highway.
So they have the way that
but they have to do like a workaround because it's in America, right? When they're not allowed to say that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like they have. It's like anyone could buy a home, but they have like certain incentives. So, for example, like if you're a descendant, you'll get like $150,000 grant to support the purchase.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So they're doing incredible work, and even like we went to Albany, Georgia, where. I mean, we wouldn't even be able to tell the whole story, but basically the first community land trust was destroyed, and then they were in litigation for like 25 years and won this lawsuit and bought a plantation which is now a farm that they operate that's like Black owned by these people that were original. Like it's unbelievable. Right?
So with all those things that you guys learned, that you gather that information to be like, okay, what's going to work for us?
Yeah, and because in Canada, like there's a a CLT movement, definitely, right? There's some older CLTs in Canada that have, thousands of units. They're just not in Nova Scotia, right? So there's some very, large, successful CLTs in Canada. It's definitely a growing move, much more. The grassroots pieces of it are definitely rapidly expanding right now in Canada, I'd say.
Yeah.
Especially we're part of like the Black CLT kind of cohort of it too, which is amazing to find like other folks like us that are passionate about this model and using it, in urban areas like Little Jamaica, and in Hogan's Alley. I don't want to leave anyone out now.
I know, right?
What are some of the like determining factors of the success or the failure of a land trust? Like when you said that one got destroyed and then it had to come back.
That was the very first one, which was founded by, civil rights activists. So the community land trust model is a Black model. It was created by Black people. And that is not a narrative that's currently talked about at all, especially in Canada, up until we got on the scene. No, we're letting everybody know.
Right.
It's black.
Well, but something I want to say about that too is like, I also don't want to, what is the word? Like make the CLT movement seem like everyone is doing it for the purposes Curtis and I are doing it, because that is not the case.
Yeah.
And so the roots are Black. This came from Black farmers in Georgia who were displaced from their land for voting. And so they realized that they needed to come together and figure out another way to collectively own property. That is the story of the CLT model. I mean, and to be fair, there's been plenty of other land trust like models, but that actual like in name of community land trust that originated there. But not everyone is doing it for the same reasons, right? Because I just feel like, the thing, again, that draws me to the CLT is that it's the deep, deep connection to the community that's required. So I never really decided to be part of this because of the potential economic benefits. Like it was like, oh, this is actually deeply responsive to the needs of the community. Yeah. And it just so happens that it's allows you to do a lot of other things, which makes sense because, Black people are very resourceful. So we're going to figure it out. But I would like to see more emphasis on the deep connection because technically like someone could just decide I'm going to build like a Halifax Community Land Trust and there's no like, There's no like requirements or restrictions based on, historic use, for example, which I think could be a great criteria. A lot of people just see it as a mechanism.
Yeah, like the Trump people could be like, we're moving to Canada. Let's build a trust and let's buy up a city.
Yeah.
Well, this is it. And like that's, you made a great point. I feel like what's challenging, I guess, with it too right now is that it's not like a common thing, right? So it's like we're trying to, explain to community members why they're important, but we're doing that to funders and to, all kinds of other, like it's like sometimes trying to fit it into to these spaces to make it fit, which can be challenging. But we're making progress. Yeah, which is good. Yeah. And there's a particular application for the community land trust in African Nova Scotian communities, right? Based on what Shekara is saying, right? That rootedness, that sense of community, where our communities are literally the last places that are like authentic, or when we think about a community space, unless it's another rural type community. You don't have that. You don't know your neighbors. You haven't, a legacy families haven't lived, shoulder to shoulder for hundreds of years. And so there's a lot of opportunity for them in our communities to create, transformation.
I think it's really interesting. First off, the flexibility of the CLT. I'm getting the lingo now. CLT.
Yeah,
that model I think is really cool because it's like, I don't know, just the flexibility of seeing what defines who's going to be a member, what type of member you're going to be, and just having that autonomy to make those decisions and help with the sustainability of the community land trust. So you had mentioned earlier, it actually was from before when you had mentioned it, that, how do I word that? Like, you basically said something, a really good point about colonial, the colonial nature of land titles. Yes, property ownership. And I think it's very interesting that you both pointed out that the CLT was actually Black people that went behind that. So maybe I'd just love for you to break down how they both contrast and how it kind of breaks down colonialism and empowers our people.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't get me on my soapbox here, but but like property ownership is a concept that came out of colonialism, and what it did, it created property owners and propertyless people that didn't exist before we moved into this land system. And so I think that the opportunity with CLTs is that, again, it removes land from the equation in some ways because the intent is to hold it forever.
Yeah.
So I think that once we can remove the that part of the conversation, we're able to actually open up for more communal conversations. So it no longer becomes and another thing actually I want to say is, you know, if there's some sort of, like, if a McDonald's is built in your neighborhood, like, individual property values go up, but there's no direct benefit, like, to the community itself. So, like, you're doing nothing, you're just living somewhere. Yeah. And then something's built, and then you individually as a human being get to benefit from that, and there's no discernible impact. So I just think, like, what the CLT does really well is that it allows the community to actually benefit from its improvements collectively.
I love that.
But it also goes back into the community. So I think that's a part we haven't really explained, maybe, is that, you know, the goal of the CLT is not for it to be like asking for grants all the time. Like, it's the goal is for it to be self-sustaining. Yeah. But when it's able to sustain itself, it's able to put more back into community. I like that. And so, you know, some of the things that we're looking at, because it's again a deeply rural community, we're hoping not to need to develop that much, but that doesn't mean that we don't want access to land. And so we're looking at, how could we look at energy production? Like, we have these big parcels of land that are just not being used. How can we look at forestry management and energy production and, you know, other climate projects? You know, we're talking about off-grid readiness, because if there's an emergency, the community has nowhere to go. Like, you know, these pieces. And should an individual own that? Like, should an individual own a community garden? Or should it be collectively owned? So I just think it's the decolonial piece of it is that it's kind of getting behind that individual benefit from community. But also, like, it's a deeply, you know, Indigenous way of living.
Yeah. Love that. Right. Thank you for that.
Yeah. I was like, I could go for a minute, but
I love it. No, because when you mentioned that, I was like, I wanted you to break that down, because I thought it was really, really interesting. And it's the truth. And I feel like that communal standpoint, even for myself, I'm learning a lot of things through this conversation. Yeah. So yeah, definitely.
So you guys both run two different trusts. What does success look like for both you guys? Yeah. We all got the same Wi-Fi.
Good question.
Like how do you envision it?
Goals.
Like, yeah. Like, if it was magic and it was successful, how would you see it?
So, I mean, I'm going to take a leap and say we probably have similar goals, but I think, again, what's beautiful is that they're probably, like, the end, we're probably going to get there different ways because, you know, African Nova Scotian is not one thing. Everyone has different needs. And so, you know, I think for me, as Nova Scotian or African Nova Scotian, we've demonstrated that we have a sincere commitment to these communities. Yeah. If we didn't, we wouldn't live in them. Like Curtis was saying, you know, especially in HRM, like one of the only communities that are still, you know, like my neighbors knew my great grandparents. I never met these people, right? Yeah. So I think that demonstrates that we are committed to these communities. And I think really all the land trust model is doing is guaranteeing that is there for future generations. So I think the idea is autonomy over place and protection, and also power, because there's power in property ownership. As much as I say I don't believe in it, you know, we do live in a colonial world, so we have to engage with it, right? And I was like, I don't know if my lifetime will be able to overthrow that system, but
play the game until you overthrow it.
Exactly. Once we get beyond the purchasing of it, then we can go into that process. But I guess what I'm saying is that it's all about having, like, fundamental control over property, and also making it more difficult to be intimidated as well. Like, you know, a lot of time when governments want access to land, or whether it's from minerals, which is the big conversation now, or other uses, they'll send individual letters to people. And I think that is like extremely difficult to handle. If you're living somewhere, let's say you don't have clear title, and then all of a sudden someone's like, oh, I can give you money just to get you off of this property so we can use it for something else. Like, you're going to take it.
Yeah.
So I think that this offers a level of security. It offers somewhere where you can talk about land issues in a real way. But again, it's the autonomy of it all, I think.
Yeah, I like the idea of it, because even if you say you want to say, I'm getting out of community, and I feel like you give it to the trust or you sell it to the trust, you know that it's going to be in the community for the long term.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the school that you talked about. Is that like still standing, or is that no longer exists?
So it was, I mean, like most of our communities, it was a segregated school until integration. So my grandmother went there until I think grade 5 or 6, and then she went to the integrated school. But then it got turned into a community center. Oh. So the community center is still there, but doesn't have clear title. Shocking to no one.
Neither does ours.
Yeah.
On Impairments Plains.
So this is a real issue, but the problem then again, so how are we going to solve this issue? Either an individual has to figure out how I'm going to purposely buy this for community benefit and basically sink my own finances to do that, or we can have this mechanism like the CLT who can start to work on clarifying that. So yeah, the community center is dilapidated building. It's still standing, but you can't actually go into it because there was no funding to maintain the property. And there's unclear title. So we can't actually apply for any funding to do anything to the building until that's clarified.
Right. There's the barriers.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the CLT, again, has the capacity to work through those legal issues.
Yeah.
Right.
And then put, like, if you guys were to refurbish it, bring it to good use, and then maybe use it to produce some kind of revenue or something. I don't know. Or just have it as a community center.
Well, yeah. So I was just going to say, like, so we made an acquisition in February, and it was the Mount Beulah Baptist Church. So that was our.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was that was the Baptist Church. The AUBA set it up. A family granted the land to the AUBA to set it up, and that family is involved with our project now. But along the line, it's a long story. I won't get into it. But that property ended up in private hands of a random white person who didn't care about the community. So long story short, we were able to get it back. They agreed to sell it to us. And so right now we're looking at how do we rehabilitate this space into a community space? But again, without the land trust, that simply wouldn't have happened. Yeah. There's just a lot. There's just so much potential. And the layering, sorry now, but like the layering of the organizations, because like I said, the CLT's role is simply to hold land. You can do more, but you don't have to. So the potential that you're working with a faith-based community, so you have the CLT that's protecting it, you have the church that's protecting it, and then you have the community, like, it's going to be very challenging for people to try to mess with that, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of power in that.
Yeah, I hear a lot of different Black communities where the land might be getting sold to outsiders, and then it's like the outsider taking advantage or buying it from someone for like dirt cheap, and then trying to flip it a couple of years later. Is that like go on in your guys' communities?
Jermaine Langford, I was going to say, he has a quote. I can't think of it right now, but it's basically about how they...
Don't sell your parents' land.
Well,
say it all the time.
No, but he talks about, they'll buy it from you for $1 and sell it back to you for 10 or something. Like he says something along those lines. Yeah. But it's literally what's happened. Like people are buying these properties not to even live on them, just to hold them and then sell them back to us. And I really genuinely feel, well, I call it like it's emotional exploitation because we'll pay. Like these aren't just, it's not just land for us, right? Like we will.
Think about it. If you say you leave your up home and you go and become successful, and then you come back home and you're like, I'm retiring or I want to buy my land, but then it's sold to someone else from outside community, and they're like, aha, I don't want the land, but like I'm charging you X, Y, Z,
Exactly.
And it's like, what do you do?
Exploitation.
Well, that land I mentioned earlier, that the tax sale, and my grandparents lost it. Yeah. So that was like my first thing. And then I actually ended up buying it back from the people. The people who had it at the time got in a tax sale, sent them a letter. They were willing to sell it to me, but they sold it to me. I paid like $28,000 for this property. That's valued at like $9,000 because it was like the emotional thing. Like if I had the power.
You've experienced it your own self.
Yeah, because the thing is, that meant a lot to my grandmother. And like, I couldn't know that she didn't like that she wanted access and not do anything about it. So like, I definitely was emotionally exploited in that situation. Wow. But what are you going to do? Yeah. Like,
do what you're doing now and help other folks so they don't have to go through what you went through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the same is true in Upper Plains. Like so many people were selling their properties because people were getting aggressive. So in Upper Plains, the zoning was very loose, right? Like you could build an apartment building without basically doing a development agreement. You can build as of right. And so we changed the zoning a couple of years ago, but in that last year, there was 945 units approved just in that last year alone. So they're building like full blown. There's cranes in Upper Hammonds Plains.
Like non-Black folks developing.
Yes.
Black land.
Big developments. Like I'm talking underground parking,
Eesh.
like 4-story, like luxury. It's like what you'd see in like a Larry Utech in sections now in the back. It's crazy.
Historically, that's a Black community.
Yeah. So, yes, exactly. And so there's all kinds of development happening in Upper Hammonds Plains. And of those, so what we were able to, so we are now building something. So in that last year, that 945 units got approved. There's one site that was approved for 136 units. And in the summer, we applied to CMHC to basically purchase the permitted site and build the housing. The housing was going to get built no matter what, right? But it wouldn't have involved the community. And we were successful in that program.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a big project.
This is
so
within the trust, or
this is within the trust. So we bought a parcel, and she was talking about hers. Our parcel was $10 million.
Yeah, crazy.
And the project is $60 million. So we're building. Yeah, we secured $62 million to build 136 co-op homes in our community, which is the community land trust is going to own. Yeah,
that's tough. So that'll be community housing, community owned.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's under construction. It just started construction.
Congrats.
Yeah,
congrats.
That's what we wanted to. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah, paved the way.
So. Yeah. So we're proving that this is possible, right? And so we talked about this for so many years. Yeah. But like these large scale, and granted, when we were going to build something, I was like, we'll build a duplex, right? By the church or something. I never dreamed. So when you were talking about what does success look like this was the dream. Okay. And my dreams like literally came true with this project. So like, and it's funny because at the end of my presentations, I always have a picture of Wakanda from Black Panther. And I used to joke that was my dream, but now I'm like, okay, Wakanda's coming.
Yeah, right.
I'm ready for
Wakanda loading.
Like our Wakanda, Nova Scotia.
Well, this is
the way they're coming for that uranium.
Right?
It's giving the sucks.
That our communities have really awesome architecture and are technologically advanced, and all of those things I feel like are possible for us. So I don't know. Like I've been trying to figure out what our next vision is. But it is like significant transformation. If this is going to be our first project, right? And I want to be able to, for us to prove a couple of other concepts around like getting conveyances of other property, and then like help other communities do the same thing, right? Because when you were talking about other communities working together, we had talked about a coalition, and how together we could be a significant, force of economic, of value, in all of our communities. Yes, no one knows their plan.
Like Black empowerment.
Exactly. Yeah. Who's getting liberated? But that we could really, if all of our communities had this, how transformational that could be, for all of us.
But also with an asterisk that the reason that the need for the coalition is like, this is not easy.
Yes.
And like, not everyone will do the same thing. So like, Curtis, they're a builder. Like at this point, they're becoming builders, right? But like, I don't know if that's something that we would want to do in Weymouth Falls. So if they already have the skill, like why couldn't we work together where they're our builder, right? So we can borrow skills. And then something, Curtis and I have talked about is because we're working in a rural area, we have more like time, I guess, to put into like resource creation. Yeah. So like maybe we could offer that service where we actually like document the process. Cool. So I think that, everyone having a CLT, it doesn't need to mean that you do everything. Yeah. Like I think the point of the coalition is like, how do we leverage each other's skills and then be able to move these projects forward quicker? Because like it's intense. Like it's a lot.
Yeah. It is. And our project, and we were reflecting on this, there was timing was a thing. There was just a perfect alignment, a storm, if you will, of factors, people that were willing to burn themselves out, that had jobs, that they could work on top of, because a lot of the, you have to be able to sustain yourself and be able to then on every other minute of your day, work on these large deals or large projects, right? And not everyone is afforded that. They have families or other commitments or whatever. So it was just, a number of factors that came together to make ours. And we were saying that I'd always been saying, every community needs to have one. Well, I don't think every community should do everything that we did, right? Like, let's work smarter. And I would love for our communities to be working more, collaboratively across community. And I was talking to now I'm getting on a tangent, but I was traveling with my family and I was talking to one of my cousins about, how Black folks used to travel around and it was based on churches. Like my grandfather would go up home, you're up home, and visit that church. So that's how people would end up knowing, or you'd say who your grandparents are and they'd be like, oh yeah, I knew them. And that's going to be gone, right? Because we don't do as much of that as we used to. But I feel like we could start to do more of that through business or through these kind of projects, which would be really exciting. Yeah.
Because that's what my grandmother said when I asked her, like, how do you know all these people from Hammonds Plains and these other places?
Right.
She's like, we used to all go to church together.
Right.
When we were on Sunday, like, oh, this and this. And then that's how, like, every Black community that when she was explaining to me, I was like, man, that's how you guys stay so connected. And it's like, even though to me, I truly feel like all the Black communities are like us. Like, we're all from, like, something happened to someone in another community, we all feel the pain. And I find that some folks don't look at it like that. I look at it like that. A lot of folks I know do, but not everyone. And I feel like, how do we get back to that? If it's not through the church, maybe it's through commerce, maybe it's through initiatives like this, where it's like we're all working together within our own, but then we're working towards one bigger goal to like educate folks, financial literacy, all these different types of things that empower community.
Yeah, and I think, through this process, I've learned a lot about myself, at least through it, and I think that's where a lot of the power lies. So I think, growing up, I didn't really understand what African Nova Scotian was. Like, I don't even honestly remember that language being used growing up. But like,
I know, right.
Now,
ANS, what was that?
Right.
When they start using that?
Well, with the land trust work, I think something that Curtis and I have had to do is like explain the history, because that is why we're doing what we're doing. So even, over the last probably 4 or 5 years, I've learned so much, like, learned that my great-great-grandfather was on the number 2 construction battalion. My grandmother knew that her grandfather served, didn't know, they weren't necessarily coming home talking about it. Like, they were traumatized and had no support. So it wasn't a discussion topic. And then I've been able to trace beyond that and find my original descendant who settled in Weymouth Falls and, connect them to enslavement in New Jersey. So I think that a big part of this process requires us to be telling the story. And the reason I bring this up is because I've met so many people at Dal who have a last name. I know that they're connected to Weymouth Falls, and I feel very comfortable to add. Like, if your name is Cromwell Jarvis, like Langford, I know where you're from. I know someone. People. Right. Yeah. And so, like, I've been going at like BSAC events and stuff. I'll go up to them and I'll say, like, are you connected to Weymouth Falls? And what I'm hearing a lot is, my grandfather was from Weymouth Falls, but I've never had the chance to be connected there, right? Or I didn't get to grow up there. So people feel disconnected. But I think that the CLT movement is making people feel like a new sense of pride with their communities. Yeah. And I think that's, not that it's a gap, but I think that's really powerful, because once you deeply understand who you are, it's really hard to tell you anything else.
It's empowering 100%.
Yeah.
And to say, like, the founding families of Hammonds Plains, I think that's a cool thing in terms of you connecting the young people to the founding folks of Weymouth Falls. And I think, some folks don't know their history, and history is empowering, I find.
It is.
Sometimes it might be, like, grim, but I feel like either way, if you look at the bright side, it's going to be empowering, because you can't know where you're headed if you don't know where you've been or where you came from, right?
That's it.
And even like putting it into a literal acquisition strategy like you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. That became part of our acquisition strategy, was to be able to folks have been really, everyone's like tracing their people back to get the names, and the church had a lot of old records. So like when I forget when that first happened, it was Pastor from EBC, Pastor Lennon Anderson. he had like challenged, I forget how that all came to be, but he wanted me to talk about my family's history. So it like made me go back and like because I knew we had it, but I had never like taken an interest in it. And then when I could like trace it all the way back to basically Virginia, that I was like, I had such a sense of pride about this like legacy of my family, right? And the history that they had. And another point that I wanted to make was about a change that I've observed like in Upper Hammonds Plains. For so long, all that we were faced with was threats, right? So when we first started organizing, it was around this traffic issue and development issues, right? And through there was so much advocacy, and our people in all of our communities have been fighting up against all kinds of stuff for years, right? And it was just always about fighting against something. But I feel like when it started with the rezoning, right? Like when we rezoned our community, it was like, yes, we fought against something and we won. And it was like an amazing feeling of us accomplishing this goal collectively. And then when we started to talk about we've been able to change change the conversations from talking about the things to preventing things to dreaming about the future and talking about exciting possibilities. And we have people coming out like for things that have never come out for things, right? Because we're having a completely different conversation. And like, you know, there's been trucks going up and down the road of home for years now, building these things, building all these buildings. And now it's like, we don't know if those trucks are going to our site. There's like a different thing to be like, you know what? There's a truck. It's probably going to our site.
Yeah.
Like it's just completely changing the perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, that truck's probably going to build our housing.
Because
right?
the outlook now is...
Even though it may not be, but it's like just that. And it's a bunch of things. Yeah. Like it's that. It's like so many different things that we get to have great positive conversations about what do we want to do next. And here's an exciting update. And it's just, it's been profound to have that change in the dialogue.
It's like going from scarcity to abundance and create from fighting against to building for.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's like powerful. And I think a lot of more Black communities have to tap into that or figure out how we can come together to create that. And I think you guys are creating a model for that, that other communities will be able to follow. Yeah. And it's evident with the success. So, you know, I think that's something that you paving the way for all the communities.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, I have no other questions. Y'all
this
answered
was
a lot.
tough. Yeah, I got one. Okay. It's just in terms of like the funding, where does the funding come? Because I know you mentioned like funders and then you mentioned government grants. How does that like work involved?
Wherever you can get it.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. We've gotten a lot of funding through the organization Shekara works for, and through Shekara. I shouldn't say the organization. It is through Shekara. I just didn't want to put her on blast, but she's amazing. Yeah. And so we've gotten a lot of grants through Shekara, which has been great. And we've gotten through CMHC, right, which seemed not possible, right? Because the federal government and the rigidity of their programming, and just kind of our organization, how we talked about like community land trust, like what's that? And you're all volunteers and you don't have any staff, like yikes, like it's just seems like, what are we investing in? You know what I mean? Like, are you serious? And I think that's a question that comes up a lot, right? Is that either folks don't think we're serious or they don't think that we can do this, right? We're definitely doubted all the time. That's why it was really nice for this project to come together and for it to finally come out that we're going to be doing this one. Because, you are kind of, I face that a lot in this space, in this kind of nonprofit development space, because it's a space that's filled with people with a lot of money, quite frankly, that aren't used to, working with community-based organizations, I guess. And even like the vendor that we, are working with was it was somebody that we fought against for a long time, right? Because they were doing a lot of the developing, who didn't want the zoning to change, right? And all of that. But then this project came along and we actually started a dialogue. And like we've had a whole shift happen there, right? Like they drank the Kool-Aid, like them and some of the builder, and because they're just like, we just didn't understand that we could do what we liked, like what we love doing, and actually like have this profound impact. Yeah. Like it's been the first time that we've ever had to have a consideration for a community or regard for what's happening. And like now they want to do more and more and more projects. They want to like grow our work. Like they just because, they really get it, right? And that they can do these types of things and also be able to like, transform and uplift a Black community. Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, for us. So I think the other thing to mention is we developed Curtis was first, obviously. Upper Hamilton Plains was the first African Nova Scotian CLT in the province. But because you're an HRM, as he was saying, like there's so many threats all the time, right? So you have to move quicker. Whereas in rural, like we don't have those threats. It's more of just like, we're seeing this community be taken away slowly. How do we kind of intervene? And so the funding that we're getting is really targeted at like governance, capacity building, like resource creation, that type of stuff. I'll say that one that I'm really proud of is a project it's called the Texas Freedom Colonies, the Outsider Preservation Initiative. So essentially, it was a fund for descendant-led initiatives in Black freedom colonies, is what they've called them. But it's a program that they were taking applications from the states, and then Nova Scotia was the only province that they considered because Nova Scotia is, considered a Black freedom colony. Yeah. And so that project hasn't started, but that's, really interesting because I think that's going to open up a lot more pathways for African Nova Scotians to be understood in that dialogue with, African American history, because like in reality, we are a continuation of that story. We're part of it. Yeah. There's a sociology book called Chocolate Cities, and basically the joke or the commentary is that, everything below Canada is a chocolate city when it started in the south and then it went north. But, I wrote a paper and I was like, I would argue that Nova Scotia has chocolate cities too, because in Nova Scotia, a lot of us descend from that history. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to touch on is because I do work as a funder. Yeah. I think, one of the challenges is that some people who don't have that experience don't know how to look for grants and don't know what to write. And so when I have conversations with folks who have an idea, my first question is like, okay, if you get the money tomorrow, what are you doing with it? And I think those are the things that you have to kind of understand. So yes, like let's say your overall goal is to get to a housing development, but what are the steps that you're going to take tomorrow to get there? And that's the work that needs to be done. Like you need to know what you need as well, which is challenging. It is challenging. But again, hopefully with us doing this work, it will help make it more clear what the pathway could be. But it's not easy for sure. Yeah.
Thank you, bro. Yeah. For sure. And now I have a question. One last little question. So just to re-clarify if you had already previously stated it, but how many CLTs are there currently in the province?
I don't want to
African Nova Scotia.
Well, now I'm scared because if I forget one, I'm sorry. Who has a camera? I'm sorry if I forget someone.
I know.
Yeah. So I know. I mean, there's us. Yeah. So Upper Hamilton Plains CLT, Weymouth Falls CLT. There's the New Roots, North End Community Land Trust. Trina Morton's leading that. There's Down the Marsh Community Land Trust. So that's in Truro. And that is all I am aware of to date.
There's lots of conversation happening around. In a number of different communities, but I think those are the ones that I'm aware of too.
Interesting. Yeah.
But lots of people, there's, I have a lot of conversations with a number of different communities about them. Yeah.
North Preston, up on one loading.
Right. Loading.
Do you guys ever pitch to like successful people from community for funding, or is that not a thing?
I mean,
no. You mean people from our own community?
Yeah, like say like there's someone from Hamilton Plains that went and was successful, and you say, hey, you got funding for the help.
Not yet.
No,
not yet.
But would that be a thing to like tell them about what you're doing and if you got funds that can help support?
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I'm glad you're raising this. I don't necessarily understand the reason. Really reluctant to like, I don't know the word I'm going to use, solicit, but like talk to community members about even conveying their own property to the land trust, right? Or asking for donations from community. And all of the events we have are free. So I just feel like I want to use whatever we have to just let people come together and celebrate.
Okay.
The little bits that we get up until now, or when our units are finished. But I don't know. I think it's just because, I want to be able to go out and just get other funding and bring it into the community. But all of that funding comes with things you got to deliver, as you both are aware. Exactly. Deliverables. And there's only a small gap there that you kind of don't have or have less or, discretion over or more discretion over. But that's why we're looking at, other types of like social finance models. There's a lot of research being done in those areas. And we're also like looking at philanthropic like foundations and starting to build relationships there. So, yeah. But no, like I feel like eventually I want to get to a place where we can purchase property from people or, do some type of like we're not a charity either. So folks can't, donate to the land trust and receive tax receipts. There's just all kinds of situations like that.
Because I'm thinking like of say I'm rich, I'm from Hammonds Plains, I'm about to die.
Yeah.
Instead of giving it to my family, it'd be like 50 goes to my family, 50 goes to the trust.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be amazing. But I've shied away from those conversations. I'll be honest with you.
I was going to say the same thing. Okay. So I think for me, a lot of the reason why is because, there have been poorly intentioned and good intentioned initiatives where it's been a lot of crowdfunding and it might not have gone as planned. And I think I'm more concerned about the negative impact that could have. So like, let's say, you wanted to build basketball court or something. And, you get grassroots fundraisers. Well, if you don't reach your total goal, you probably can't develop that. And then I think that just creates some mistrust with community. So I think that's one part. And then the other part is that, these communities have held them for hundreds of years at this point, and they haven't been invested in. So I do feel like there is, dare I say, reparations owed. And that's why I think going for, public dollars, philanthropic dollars, that's the precedent. I do think, though, what you're saying about like, have you reached out to people who might want to do that? I don't think that, like, for us or for me, like, I want to deliver something first to, like, really deliver it, not just
show them that you can do it. Right. It can be successful. Then, hey, you can help us out. You got what you...
Yeah. And even, like, talking about wills and estate planning, because you mentioned that, right? Like, that's a huge gap. Yes. Like, it's so unfortunate. People really, truly don't understand the wills process. And that's how you lose so much land.
Law school. Yes. I went and did land law or whatever it's called, property law. And it's like, if, let's say we got the same dad, I die, but I got 2 kids. They don't got a will. You got to go to my kids. If my kids don't agree with you, then they going to fight for the land or whatever. It's like, it's definitely crazy. There was one other question that I had, and I can't remember. Unclaimed land, or however it works in terms of the land claims initiative. Yeah. Does it go back to Crown, or can the Crown keep it, or how does that work? Because I remember when I was looking at the map, it's like North Preston, and then all around it has like Crown land. So it's like, how does that work? And was that land once belonged to North Preston people, or was it like taken away slowly? How does
Yeah, that's a large question. I don't. Yeah. It's hard to know. I can't speculate, what the title, what the roots of title are. But yes, you're correct. North Preston and others similar communities are surrounded by, Crown lands, ungranted lands. North Preston has the largest piece of ungranted land, I think, in Nova Scotia. Oh, wow. It's a very large piece of property. And, there's unknown owners, the parcels that literally just say unknown owner. And then you have these ones that are like very historical that sometimes just have like the name of like the person that came like in the landing papers. It'll just say that person's name, right? But then there's no good root of title there. So there's just a lot. I don't know what the future looks like, but I feel like, eventually some of the because what the Land Titles Initiative creates is a process where people are kind of, putting their assertions forward, right? And then like someone will put out a certificate of claim, and then people have the right to object on that claim. Somebody needs to get to the point of making a claim, right? There's a standard for that. But then once the claim goes out, anyone can make an objection on that claim. And you don't have to go through the process. Yeah. So it just creates like, I've observed those situations where really, it's going to, and that's going to cause a lot of challenges. Yeah. So I'm just like, it'd be great in the future if we were able to, have something where the community land trust could just take these ones, right? There's no legislation for that. But, it'd be one of the concepts is that, if the land trust holds it, we can figure it out as a community, what's going to happen. Yeah. But, to go through that complex process and people start having to fight with each other who never thought that they would be, but now there's a situation. Now there's people,
family.
Right.
Crazy.
Which is going to happen anyways, but like let's keep that in our house, right? Rather than on Front Street. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Too, because like as a community it's like everybody is kind of related. A lot of people are related, so it's like when the people are beefing for the land, it's like it's half of the community beefing for
I know. And people who are entitled should be putting their interests forward, right? And sometimes people are like, well, if they're throwing there, I'm going too because we're cousins, right? Yeah. But then it's like, then you're in this big mix and, it's just not the right, the mechanism still is not perfect.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the land titles initiative. So, yeah.
So, that's, do you want to tell them?
One word checkout?
Yeah, tell them about it.
Perfect.
You guys watch a lot of our episodes or have you seen any?
I've seen several. Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen them all though. So don't give me.
No wonder they weren't nervous.
I love it. Yeah, they regulars. I told you professionals.
Yeah.
So first off, before I introduce the one word checkout, was there anything we did not discuss that you would have loved to touch on?
Question.
Yeah.
Ooh. I don't know. I just think this last discussion was really impactful because, again, I'm going to go back to colonization.
Yeah.
Like there's just a perceived value in the holding of the land. And I think that a lot of people that end up holding land realize that there's not unless you can do something with it. And that's a whole other cost. So letting the land trust kind of bear that burden, I think is a real opportunity for community in those situations. So... No, I think this is a great conversation.
Me too.
I just feel like sometimes it's hard to know if it's landing because I know that it's complex.
It is.
So,
Trust me, some of the stuff I couldn't get it, but
we need. But the thing is, we need to start in the house. It's like if we start opening up, maybe someone will hear it and be like, maybe I should ask my grandparents about land, and then the conversation can continue. Yeah. But I guess I just don't want anyone to feel like discouraged from talking about it.
No, honestly, your patience as well during this entire episode, I really appreciated because even for myself, I was hearing some of the language. I'm like, okay, how do I grasp this? And then it started to make sense through the conversation. So I think for viewers, if you understand, then great. But also if you don't, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but feel free to reach out, ask questions as well. Because that patience I think is really important because sometimes people will shy away from even having that conversation when they don't even know or fear that they don't know what they're talking about and stuff. So you made that really comfortable. So
that's why we look at each other because we know it's complicated.
Yeah, I know.
So it's like, how do you break it down?
Exactly.
I'm a manifester right now. I'm going to be involved with the North Preston Trust if we're able to create one, whoever's out there. And I think we can make hotels in the Prestons. I think we can make sustainable businesses that folks can come visit and participate in. And I'm gonna manifest that. I'm gonna be involved in this.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's possible for us.
Yeah.
These things are possible for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm glad y'all are leading the way with that. I think it's really inspiring. And
thank you.
I've learned a lot.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks out hear this are going to be like mind blown.
I'm blown away.
Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
So one word checko from our regular viewers over here. The one word.
I know. I was like, look at him first.
I know, right?
I know.
So one word checkout, basically, first off, one North End, the pun intended, but also one word being how this episode made you feel. One word that maybe describes how you're feeling today in general. And just explaining that, why you chose that word briefly.
If y'all ain't ready, I got my word.
Yep. Please don't be the same.
So I'm going to say history because what you guys are doing is making history. And I know what you guys were saying about looking back to your ancestry and stuff like that, but like there's going to be like 200, 300 years from now where folks are going to be looking back at the initiatives that you guys started and they're going to be like, this is who started that, and this is why my community is where it is today. And I think you guys are making history. So keep it up. Keep trucking it.
Wow.
You know?
And I appreciate that. I was thinking ready. Like, I feel like after conversations like this, because this work is a lot, right? And we don't get time to just talk about it. So I appreciate this a lot, like more than you probably understand. And I love talking about this stuff. And I just don't we always talk about, you know, that we need to talk more about it, but it's like you got to kind of sit and have a moment. So it's been great, especially with people that are passionate and curious about what we're doing. It just makes me feel ready, right? Ready to keep pushing forward, to deliver on our commitments and keep it going so that we can come back and keep talking about the exciting things that are happening.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think you guys are so great at podcasting. You guys got to go on other podcasts and put this out there so the more you guys do it and the more like black platforms, local platforms that you get on, it's going to educate the folks and more people will get involved. Like, you never know. Like, someone could be listening right now and be like, I'm getting involved. I'm hitting them up. I'm successful from the Hammonds Plains. I'm successful from Weymouth Falls, and I'm going to hit them up and I'm going to support. I'm going to see what I can do.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's like ASMR. Did you want to go first or you want me to do?
Yeah, no, I'll go so I don't have to go last.
I'm crying.
Right? I don't want to take us home. I think what I've been thinking about is like freeing, the word freeing. And I say this because, you know, it, like Curtis was saying, it is a lot and a lot is going on. And I think it's hard to communicate. Like, it's hard enough to take the time to explain it to the community who's actually like involved in the process, let alone to explain it to everyone. And I think a lot of it is like, where do I even start? It's like, well, a CLT is like this, but we want to kind of talk about it in practice. So I think opportunities like this are a lot better. And I enjoy this opportunity to like, are we making sense in the way that we're communicating this?
You guys are tough.
Yeah,
you know what the next thing you guys might be able to do? Write a book together.
A book,
Okay.
Yeah.
Publishing.
That's
our next business.
There you go.
Yeah.
Definitely.
For real.
Yeah, my word. I'm trying to think if I ever used this word before on a previous one, but if I did, that's fine anyway. Because it's a big one that's important, but collective. Collective is the word that really stood out to me. Collective, just the community land trust and that kind of lens. Obviously, like you said, the land ownership and that being really important, but from a collective standpoint, having that autonomy and governance is definitely important. Collectiveness with some of the vendors you may have clashed with at first, and then collectively coming together to make something happen. So I think that's a big theme that stood out to me, and it really helped enlighten me, and just the way that I'll probably move forward in life as well with certain viewpoints. So
that's right.
Awesome.
History, collective, freeing, ready. We ready?
Yeah, we ready.
Love it.
Beautiful.
Thank you guys so much for coming on. And that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a comment, leave your one-word checkout at the bottom.
Make sure y'all catch us at the next episode as well on wherever you watch your podcast. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to our Feature Friday podcast. And just wanted to make sure that you guys are connected on all platforms. So wherever you're tuning in, maybe even leave us a 5-star review.
If you're watching on YouTube, hit like and subscribe.
And on our social medias as well, you can follow us at ANS Lab or at African Nova Scotian Youth Lab as well on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We got the whole mumble jumble. It'll be in our link tree in our bio.
Don't forget to enter our contest that we have in each episode.
And the way to enter that contest will be sprinkled throughout our episodes, so make sure that you're listening and paying attention.
Each episode may be different, but comment below wherever you are.
And if you don't use social media and you're one of those people, you can even reach out to us by email at anslab@onenorthend.com.
The details are in the episode description.
And last but not least, we want to make sure that we get you guys connected to our resource, our network of resources, the Grapevine newsletter. So to get subscribed, you can check the link in our bio and subscribe yourself. But if you're not that tech savvy, you can also email us at anslab@onenorthend.com and we can get you hooked up.
We'll see you on the next episode.
See you next month.
Let's get it.
Feature Friday. Friday.
What's your favorite thing about Fridays?
That's a good question.
The features.